You're listening to Linked AM. Tell your story on Linked Live and get noticed. You're listening to Carl Wolfenden on the Business Class Show and is not always affiliated with the guests and the topics discussed. Any financial statements are the opinions of the individual, and you should seek professional advice before making any decisions. Upgrade your listening to Business Class, the show that puts you in the big leather comfy seats. So sit back and enjoy our take on the trending business issues of the week.
Howdy, folks. Here he is, the Texas Brit, the guy with the stiff upper lip, filling his 10-gallon hat and his cowboy boots, Carl Wolfenden.
Good morning, and welcome to Linked AM here on BCN News, Business Class News. And we've been talking about last quarter. We talked about race to the start line, about how you need to be preparing, getting into that new quarter and getting ready for acceleration growth to really get you through the rest of the year. And we've been having emails all throughout the week since we started talking about that, about, well, what should we be focusing on and what resources do we have that we can point them to? So I thought, that's a great question. Get it all the time through our email box. And so why not bring on a couple of my very close friends that I've known for years and bring them on, because that's exactly what they do. And they've got an exciting project that they're actually launching in a couple of months' time, which I'm going to also talk about as well. So of course, we've got some of my close friends, John Gengler from Business Owners Resource Network, Born, in the studio today, and of course Scott Sandy from Vertex Planning Partners, because they've been doing this all their lives as such, and they're such young gentlemen. It's been a short period of time, of course, all their lives, but I've got them in the studio. Thanks for joining me today.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks, Carl. Thanks for having us.
So, John, let's go to you first before I go over to Scott. Now, Born, I love that name. Born, the Born identity, as I like to call you. So tell me more about what Born does.
Sure. Well, thanks for the time, Carl, and pleasure to be with you this morning. Born really was born out of 30 years of starting and building my own companies or helping others start and build theirs. As you said, I don't feel like an older gentleman anymore, but it has been 30 years. So, and in doing, starting my own businesses and helping others start and build theirs, I've encountered all sorts of problems over the years, as have my clients, my partners, and other peers that I've worked with over the years, and had to solve those challenges in a variety of ways over 30 years, both for myself and for clients and for others who have been starting and building their companies. So, about a year ago, I and some other business owners and investors and service providers and other folks who have all spent their careers building and running or working with privately held middle market business owners to build and grow businesses and create wealth for themselves and their families, we decided to come together and form the Business Owners Resource Network. And quite simply, what we do is we help business owners solve the problems we've had to solve for ourselves and our own businesses over the past 30, 40, 50 years. And today we do that through a variety of means, but it's really owners helping other owners and resources that those owners need to solve problems. Those problems generally fall into one of three categories. It's usually either people, capital, or resources. And that's what Born does. We help owners solve problems around those three issues.
Fantastic. So Scott, tell me how that interfaces with what John's just said. I mean, tell me more, first of all, about Vertex Planning Partners and what you guys do over there.
Yeah, so Vertex Planning Partners, we're a wealth management firm that has a specialty in working with business owners. So my partners and myself, we've been in the business over 20 years, come from a lot of the largest institutions that they would household names. And what I found, stepping back about me, I grew up in a family business. I mean, I know what it's like when dad's making payroll out of his savings account, right? And a lot of times, especially in the middle market businesses, the business and the family wealth are all one and the same. And sometimes that gets forgotten about. And what we do is we help owners as they're going through that, especially in that growth and exit stage, to make sure they're doing things that are going to be most efficient for them, especially on transitioning out, so they can maximize the potential of a potential sale, for example, and minimize taxes. So things like that we do. And what I think, other owners like is the fact that when they're dealing with us, they're actually dealing with owners, right? Because a lot of times when you're dealing with a people in our space, it's an employee of some firm, and they don't have they don't have that same experience and that the other person's lived. So we know what it's like. Right? When PPP came out, we didn't end up taking loans, but we had to sit there and go through all that stuff. We have 30 souls on our ship, right? That we're helping and writing the front, signing the front of the check, not the back. So I think we can bring a different lens that the typical wealth management group doesn't have. And it fits in nicely with what John's doing, because a lot of the decisions that owners deal with when working with John and other guys we work with affect our side too. And so it's like when you put those hand in glove together, it's a great combination.
So one of the things that we always hear here on BCN News, and owners come to us and say, yeah, it was a great segment that I saw or heard or whatever, but you're talking about it, but you don't really explain how to do it. But that's what you guys have done, isn't it? You're coming together, and this is like segueing into what you're doing in the next couple of months. You're launching the Owners Forum, and the Owners Forum. Yeah, you're going to be sort of showcasing all the things you just said, all the things that they should be thinking about, but also you're going to be saying, yes, but it's not, we're just going to tell you about it. We're actually going to show you how to do it. Is that right?
Yeah, it's the Owners Forum really grew out of something Scott and I worked on when we were doing it for a group of private owners, basically at a private bank out of Chicago. And we created a series of video and in-person panel discussions for owners around issues that were important to them. And as we went through that process, we realized that it wasn't just important to the set of private owners that we were talking to at this particular bank. Every owner has these sorts of problems. And, owners oftentimes are scrambling to just keep up with the day, let alone try and figure out how am I going to address this issue that I've never had addressed before, or I don't have the bandwidth, or I don't have the people, or I don't even know where to start to ask questions. Well, who do you go ask? Well, you might go ask your friends at the club, or, on the golf course, or your attorney or your accountant. But, oftentimes they're limited by their own experiences as well. So we decided to really put together a group of owners talking about other owners and the issues that are important to those owners, kind of owners, by owners, for owners, if you will. And as Scott said, the issues are all interrelated. You can't talk about growing a business unless you have an end in mind. Where do you want to get to? What do you want to do? And if you have that end in mind, and if it's about either creating a transaction to sell your business, or passing it on to the next generation, or turning it over to the employees as an ESOP, or whatever it might be, there are implications to those decisions that you need to be thinking about years ahead of the actual event. And we all, in our own respective ways, as owners and service providers and capital providers and others, talk with owners and deal with owners and address some of the same issues, just from different angles. And Scott and I, in working together over the years, along with others, realize that, nothing operates in a silo. And as Scott said, it's hand in glove, and one hand washes the other. And use whatever other analogy you want, but things all have to work together. And good owners realize that it's about that. It's taking the holistic picture and putting all the pieces together. But sometimes you just don't have all the pieces to the picture, and you need some help. And turning to other owners who have experienced it, have been there, have done that, have solved the problem before. That's what Owners Forum is about. And Scott's organization deals with parts of it. My organization deals with parts of it. And we have others within our group and others that we'll be bringing into the Owners Forum to discuss the various aspects of owning a business, starting a business, growing a business, taking a business through a transaction, and all the other aspects of being an owner and the issues you face on a day-to-day basis.
Well, that's refreshing to hear because, you know, one thing I do know, and we get this all the time, is people come to me and they go, you know what, I need help, but I don't have time for help. And I go, well, you need help, but you don't have time for help because at the end of the day, they're busy running their business. And when they're an owner, they, as you just said, Scott, you know, at the end of the day, you know, they have responsibilities. They've got employees, they've got the suppliers, they've got all these different things. And guess what? They're working till 1 a.m. sometimes to try and just make sure that they're doing things. And so having a 1 hour meeting, you know, everything, yes, they'll be on the golf course, as you say, but it's not really the right forum to be able to have that. And I just used the word forum, didn't I? The Owners Forum will be the place where it's on demand. They can go to it when they need it. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
Yes, I think that's exactly what we envisioned because people want to consume this kind of information when it's convenient and on their terms versus like, oh, there's a thing at 3 o'clock on a Tuesday. Let me go to this event. And depending on your community that you're in, the size of it, sometimes, let's say, for example, we're talking about potentially selling your business. You might not want other people knowing that's something you're thinking about, right? So this is a great place where you can interact with owners from all across America and ask questions and get different perspectives from different chairs, and or see it from a recorded conversation and get what you need at 1 a.m. when you finally got done doing payroll, for example.
Yeah, I mean, I live it and breathe it, and so I know exactly what you mean. So one of the things that intrigues me, are you going to have subject matter experts, people that have done this before? Because I think, John, you used the analogy, one hand washes the other and all those other acronyms. But, to me, when you were talking, it says it takes a village. And if you have a village of related, relevant people, i.e. business owners that can tell each other their experiences, there's nothing better than learning from somebody that's made a mistake in the past and say, I did this and I wish I hadn't, but I got through it. And this is how I got through it. Is that how you're envisaging that some of these sessions will go?
Absolutely. The best teacher is experience. And that was the whole point of the Owners Forum, is how can I benefit from the experience of others? All of us have our own set of filters and experiences and talents and knowledge and education. But these days, it's hard to find a Renaissance man that knows everything and can do everything. So, leveraging the experience and lessons learned by others, peers in your industry, peers in other industry, other individuals having those sorts of challenge, professionals who have focused on the issues you're dealing with. For example, what are the direct marketing firms out there that might help me do some direct marketing campaigns? Or, how have others gone about putting together a sales force to address this sort of issue to grow on a national scale? Or, we've got our sales locked down, but, I've really got to struggle now with operations and keeping up with the orders and supply chain issues. So, can we talk to somebody who's got more of that sort of a focus? Or to Scott's point, I'm thinking about selling the business in a couple of years, and I need to really start thinking about my estate planning and my tax planning. And, I don't know the right investment bankers to talk about to take my business to market, to sell it, or, any number of other issues that might come up where, as a business owner, can I go find those individuals? Yes. Is it going to take me a lot of time? And am I kind of shooting in the dark sometimes, and unless I don't have some personal references? Absolutely. So the Business Owners Network was put in place to help owners go to a safe place to get those sort of recommendations, ask the types of questions that Scott mentioned, and get answers from other folks that don't have an agenda, that aren't trying to sell something to them, that have just dealt with those issues before and are sharing their experiences, and in some cases might even be willing to help in some way.
So Scott, one of the things that I heard John say earlier was, you can't just wake up one morning and say, "Oh, I'm going to sell the business, and I'll do it tomorrow." That's a very key question on a lot of people's mind as they're succeeding the business and migrating it over to either their children or they're trying to sell it, etc. They have to get the books in order, and they have to make sure that the memorandums of incorporation still aligns with all these different things. So that seems to be like a landmine of things. So how often, when do you need to start looking at that?
So that's a great question, Carl. And I wish more people thought about that sooner rather than later. More times than not, John and I both have experienced the call. The call you don't want is when one of the owners you're working with calls you on a Monday and says, "Hey, guess what I did this weekend?" And you're like, "Oh, what?" And they're like, "I'm going to sell my company." And you're just like, "Ah." Because once you start that process, there's a lot of the things that we could have done to save them substantial from a tax perspective, like a federal estate tax or potentially state income tax, depending. There's a lot of hoops we got to jump through, but there's a lot of planning we could have done. And really, I need to answer your question, when's the best time? Sooner rather than later. But if you are that owner who's getting towards the end and saying, "You know what, I've had a lot of fun, but I think it's just, I'm ready to cash in the chips," I would say, 18 to 24 months ahead is a great time to just start exploring what does this look like, because there's a lot of things we can do over that period of time, from a restructuring how you own your business, individually, to different trusts, or just cleaning up some of the things in the business to maximize that sale potential. There's just so much we can do that if we wait till the end, sometimes you just don't get the best price.
So, because the reason why I asked that question was because, I can see now as we're framing this out, how important that is for somebody to be able to see the content that you're starting to create, and for them to say, "Okay, now I understand what the steps are," and you'll have a complete section around that. So I can. If I'm not interested in starting a business because I've already got an established, I can jump straight to that content and say, "This is phase one of what I need to be doing in the process of me selling or transitioning my business." That's great. I just wanted to see that. And John, I saw that you were eager to jump in there. So what?
No, I think Scott's exactly right. 18 to 24 months sometimes. And parallel to that, as they start going through that process and thinking about the personal side and what are the issues I need to be getting in line right now, and what relationships and resources do I need to be lining up to do that. You also need to be looking at what's the business going to be doing over that period of time, because if you're taking it through a transaction and you're getting that all lined up, the worst thing you can do is do all that and take your eyes off the ball on the business. And then you get to the point to take it to the market, and all of a sudden you're trailing 12 months, doesn't look as good as it used to look because you've been focused on something else. So concurrent to all of that, it's what do I need to be doing to the business to maximize the value of that business as I'm going through this process? So, do I need to be improving my top line revenue? Do I need to be improving my EBITDA a little bit? Do I need to clean up some of the things in my operations or in my financial accounting, or any number of things that need to occur? Because as owners and the group of folks, both between Scott and myself and some of the other members of the Born Network, we've gone through that process and we've learned those lessons. And being able to talk to somebody about, what are those things and what are the pitfalls and what did you learn and how did you maximize the value of your business, or how did you, kind of screw up and you could have gotten a couple million more had you done things a little bit better. That's invaluable information, and you don't get that usually. You don't get the opportunity to really have those sorts of discussions on a regular basis with other owners who have been there, done that, and have learned those lessons.
Yeah, and I think too, it's, when you're going through that, also, this is a valuable way to understand, like, who do I feel like, let's say we're going on the theme of selling, but do I want to sell to a financial buyer or maybe a strategic buyer, right? Am I selling to a family office? Because each one of those different groups is going to look at your business differently, and what they're going to want is going to be different. So, and the outcome to you and your employees will be different. So it's kind of understanding what feels good to you, because sometimes it's not always about the dollar size of the check. And a lot of times the people in this network can kind of say, like, hey, if you're going to sell to like a PE firm, here's what they're going to look at. This is how it's going to go down. It kind of helps you pre-experience that before you go through it. So it just really lets people pre-experience this before they actually, get into the pool and start swimming.
I've heard that before in terms of, because a lot of owners, because they know their employees, etc., that's something that is very special to some of the owners' hearts, to say, I want to make sure when I walk out that door and I hand the key over, that my employees, the people that relied on me and I relied on them, are going to be looked after. And so having that due diligence up front could be quite eye-opening if they see, oh, well, they're just going to come in, wipe the slate clean and bring my own people in. Well, that's not what a lot of people want. And so it's not always about the dollar, but the dollar is always a good thing to have. I always say. Yeah. So, hey guys, I know that we're going to be having, I've asked you this before, and I want you to come back on the show. I want us to do more of these. We're unfortunately coming up to our time, but it's one of those subjects that I know we're going to have a lot of emails about. So with your permission, I'm going to be like, talking to you and say, hey, we just had an email about this. Can we jump back on the show and explain and sort of talk about that? And then as you start to, form what the owners forum is going to look like, I love to tease my audience and the readers, listeners and viewers about what you're doing. So let's keep this going. Yeah.
Yeah. Sounds great.
Sounds great.
Fantastic, guys. Well, thanks for joining me this morning. It's been a pleasure, and I think we answered a few of those questions that came through the email chain a few weeks ago. So appreciate you doing that.
Thanks, Carl.
Thanks, Carl.
Of course, that was John Gengler and Scott Sandy from, now I'm going to say the Owners Forum, because that's their two organizations. They've come together to create that. And of course, I'm excited to hear what they're doing, because again, over the past, you hear me say this all the time, we've been going now 8 years on Business Class News, BCN News, as we're now rebranded BCN News. And so we've been talking about this for a long, long time, because it's in the minds of all of you guys and gals out there that own businesses or wanting to start businesses. And it's like, where do I get all this information? There's all these resources out there, but then there's not any one place to go. And it sounds like that John and Scott are actually bringing those things together. So I'm excited to continue that conversation and bring more information as we get it to BCN News and to you guys and gals out there. So as I say, every morning, go out there, make some money, because guess what? We're in business. We want to make money. And if we don't make money, it's just a hobby, isn't it? I don't want a hobby. I want to make some business and so make some money. So until the next time, go out there and bring me some more stories, because I want all those questions, because I've got answers for you. And so thanks for listening to Linked AM this morning. Goodbye.